Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Meenakshi. On behalf of NEN and Wadhwani Foundation, would like to invite you all for this webinar and also to introduce our expert, Mr. Jersis V. Dastoor. Mr. Dastoor is the Chairman and Honorary Treasurer of the Managing Committee of the Ripon Club and the Vice Chairman and Honorary Treasurer of the Mumbai chapter of the World, the Zattusti Member of Commerce. He is a partner at V.S. Dastoor and Company Chartered Accountants and D.J. Jasawala and Company Chartered Accountants since 19 years. Mr. Dastoor is actively involved in strategic consulting, including business plans, sales strategy development, advertising new businesses on formation of corporations, business structures, drafting privacy policies, and structuring commercial transactions, and administration of family offices. Before I hand over the floor to Mr. Dastoor, there are a few reminders for the audience. You'll be on mute. You may ask a question by typing in the panel provided. Over to you, Mr. Dastoor.
The introduction and welcome all of you to a presentation on how to choose the best legal structure for your startup. I'd like to thank NEN and the Wadhwani Foundation for this opportunity, and thanks. So let's start. Okay, so we go on to the first slide on are you ready to start up? And when you're ready to start up, there are various factors you need to take into account. Like what is your desire? What is the degree of sacrifice you're willing to make? What is the discipline you have? What is your self-confidence? And what is your willingness to work to generate revenue for this startup? These are all questions which need to be considered and looked at the stage at when you decide to start up on your own. So which is the best solution for you? What is the best legal entity for you? There are no direct answers to this question. You need to weigh the pros and cons for each type of startup. You need to assess the suitability of that option. Okay. After that, you need to develop your idea. So what exactly is your idea for the business? What exactly is the product? Who is the target? Why will the target accept your product or your idea? Why will others not accept this market? And what are the current market risks involved? These are all issues which need to be considered at the stage of developing your idea itself. Currently, there are various challenges you may face in this business. The different challenges you could face would be basically economic challenges, there could be regulatory challenges, there could be technological challenges, human resource challenges, and personal challenges. The various types of structures you could choose are as follows. For any business entity, you can incorporate a partnership firm, you could set up a company, you could set up a sole proprietary concern, a joint venture, or a limited liability partnership. As regards a sole proprietary concern, a sole proprietary concern is a one-man show. The complete management and control of a sole proprietary concern rests completely with the proprietor. There are no formal organization structures. It all ends and begins with the sole proprietor. There is unlimited personal liability in this business. The capital is limited only to the capital which is there with the proprietor. The only way to transfer these interests are by selling these assets, and there is no separate legal entity in the eyes of the law. The sole proprietary concern is the same as the sole proprietor himself. We then move to a partnership firm. A partnership firm is a partnership between minimum of two individuals. In India, it can extend up to a maximum of 20 partners. There is basically a limited formal organization here. However, in a partnership firm, each partner is jointly, individually, and severally liable as regards all assets and liabilities in the firm. The taxes are at an entity level, and all partners can completely bind the firm. We move on to a company. A company is a voluntary association. A company has a distinct name. a company is a separate legal entity which is indestructible by any act of nature. It continues irrespective of whether the shareholders survive or not, so there's perpetual succession. The limited liability of the shareholder is only restricted up to the share price or the share capital which he contributes into a company, and it's a separate legal entity. In a court of law, a company can be sued, it can be proceeded against. It's a complete hands-off entity. A company has a common seal under which a company operates. Within a company, we move on to something called a private limited company. A private limited company is a company where there are restrictions on share transfers. Shareholders are restricted to a maximum of 50 shareholders. Private limited companies cannot accept public deposits, debentures, or issue shares to open public. There are no prospectus required, as you are not issuing shares to the open public, and you need a minimum of 2 directors in India. I'm happy to report that the Indian Companies Act has now incorporated something called a one-person company, which has just been introduced. And the advantage of this is you can start a company with a single shareholder. Okay, you can have directors between 1 to 15. Your liability is limited only up to the share capital which you put in, and the formalities otherwise are the same as a normal company. We then move to a public limited company. A public limited company is a company which is not a private limited company and which has a minimum of 7 members and a maximum of infinite amount of shareholders. Okay, a public limited company needs a certificate of commencement of business to be obtained from the registrar to start business. Okay, and a public limited company is allowed to invite and make applications to the public for subscription of shares, debentures, deposits, etc. We now move to a limited liability partnership. A limited liability partnership is a new hybrid structure which brings you both the benefits of a partnership, and it brings you the limited liability of a company. So all liabilities of partners are limited up to their amount of capital which they bring into the LLP. The LLP has no maximum number of partners, so you can have as many partners as you want in an LLP. It's also a standalone entity, so it has perpetual existence and perpetual succession like a company. Okay, none of the provisions of the Indian Partnership Act 1932 apply to a limited liability partnership. The limited liability partnership is governed by the Ministry of Company Affairs, and there is no requirement of minimum capital contribution to be given by any of the partners in an LLP. So an LLP is a very favorable structure which is now allowed in India, and it's very popular amongst professional firms like chartered accountants, lawyers, etc. As there is a limited liability on the partners and there is no limit on the number of partners. We then move on to a joint venture. A joint venture is basically a coming together of 2 different parties for a business agreement where there is a capital contribution for both parties, and the parties agree to develop a new entity for a limited purpose or for a limited purpose or for a limited amount of time. Okay, all expenses are shared, revenues are shared, assets are shared. So the joint venture is something which comes for a limited period or for a limited purpose and is dissolved once that objective has been reached. We now come to important statutory regulations as regards setup of all these legal entities. For all these legal entities, you need first a basic incorporation document. You then need to apply for a permanent account number from the income tax. You need to apply for a tax deduction account number from the income tax, a service tax registration from the service tax authorities, a sales tax registration if you're undertaking any sales, and their a social security registration if you employ staff above a certain limit, and in certain states you also have to have a shops and establishments registration from your local municipality, which basically governs the operation of your office on an ongoing basis. We've now come to a basic comparison of various issues which need to be considered between sole proprietary concerns, partnership firms, companies, and LLPs. Right. Number one is registration. In a sole proprietary concern, no registration is required. However, at this stage, I must add that there are certain banks which are forcing you to obtain some kind of registration before you can actually open a bank account as a sole proprietary concern. So it is possible that a bank will insist on seeing like concerned bank account. On a partnership firm, registration is optional. You can choose to register under the partnership under the registrar of firms, or you can have an unregistered partnership, but you need a partnership deed. A partnership deed has to be created. Okay, in a company, yes, the company needs to create its memorandum and articles of association and then register the same under the Companies Act. For an LLP has to create a partnership agreement, and the same has to be registered under the LLP Act 2008 with the MCA as well. Coming to the second point about a separate legal entity, a sole proprietary concern is not a separate legal entity in law. A partnership firm is technically not a separate legal entity because all assets and liabilities are completely shared by the partners, and the partners' liability is unlimited, and hence there is no claim as such on a partnership. In case of an issue, the claim goes straight onto the partners, so it does not qualify as a separate legal entity. Company and an LLP are considered separate legal entities. They are subject to perpetual succession and can be sued separately in law, and hence they are separate legal entities. The law for name. In a sole proprietary concern, there is no law. The choice, the name, basically, as long as it reflects a certain kind of activity which you propose to do, you can carry on. There's no choice. In a partnership firm, there is partners as long as it reflects the name of the partners, and in professional firms, and otherwise you can choose any name. In a company, the name has to be approved from the ROC. And in an LLP as well, names have to be approved by the ROC. Foreign investments. Sole proprietary concerns technically cannot receive any foreign investments. Partnership firms as well cannot receive foreign investments from foreign nationals. Companies and LLPs are allowed subject to foreign direct investment rules, depending on which industry the company and the LLP exist in. Okay. Next point, coming to the maximum/minimum number of owners/partners. In a sole proprietary concern, there can be only one. In a partnership firm, you have to have a minimum of 2 partners and a maximum of 20 partners. In a private limited company, you have to have a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 50 shareholders. And in an unlimited company, you have to have a minimum, a public limited company, you need to have 7 minimum shareholders and an unlimited infinite amount of public shareholders. In an LLP, it's 2 to unlimited. Okay. Coming to the next point on ownership of assets. Assets in a sole proprietary concern are completely owned by the partner. As regards in a partnership firm, all assets are owned jointly within all the partners depending on the profit sharing ratios. Then in a company, all assets are owned only by the company. In an LLP, all assets are owned only by the LLP. Authorities and responsibilities. In a sole proprietary concern, there are none. You don't have anybody to report to. In a partnership firm, you're governed by basically what are the clauses of the respective partnership deed. In a company, you're governed by this respective memorandum of articles and articles of association of the company and the clauses contained therein. In an LLP agreement, you need to fulfill all your responsibilities as covered by the LLP agreement. Point 8, liability. In a sole proprietary concern, all liabilities are unlimited with the sole proprietary concern. In a partnership firm, liabilities are joint and several within the partners depending on what their partners' profit sharing ratio is. In a company, liability is only limited up to the extent of the unpaid share capital you have. In an LLP, it's only limited up to the extent of the capital contribution as stipulated in the LLP agreement. Point number 9 on transfer. In a sole proprietary concern, there is absolutely no way to transfer the business. You just need to sell all the assets. In a partnership firm, transfer is not possible as well. In a company, transfer can be done by selling as it's a separate legal entity. In an LLP, transfers can be done depending on what are the specific clauses in the LLP agreement. Point 10 about the basic legal document. As regards the sole proprietary concern, there is no basic legal document. In a partnership firm, the basic legal document is a partnership deed. In a company, it's a memorandum of association and articles of association. And in an LLP, it is basic LLP agreement. Point 11, as regards legal action for business, in a sole proprietary concern, an owner can sue and be sued only in his personal capacity. Okay. In a partnership firm, the partners can be sued in their own personal capacity, and if the partnership firm is a registered firm, then that registered firm can sue third parties. In a company can sue and be sued in its own individual capacity, and the same in an LLP. An LLP can sue and can be sued in its own individual capacity. Okay, so we now finally come to which entity do I choose. There are various factors to be considered as regards specific entity which may be required, taking into account basically your mindset and personality as to what kind of person are you, what is the basic timing of that, what entity which needs to be created, what is the ownership of the entity, what is the financing, what are the basic costs you're willing to incur, and various tax matters. So let's look at each of these in detail. We come to mindset. So depending on whether you're an entrepreneurial spirit, what are the degree of leadership skills you have, are you a team member, do you have specific listening skills, are you very self-centric, or are you a team builder? Depending on this, we would say that this is a very key factor to determine whether you can work in a company or in a partnership firm where you're dependent on interaction with others, or you should work in a sole proprietary concern where you work with only yourself. Next issue is timing issues. Basically, sometimes companies are in a hurry, you need business, it needs to be done immediately, etc. There are certain businesses which take time to set up. Okay, so if you're in a hurry then and you don't have time, then basically a sole proprietary concern is your fastest way to be up and running. Okay, there's very little paperwork required, there's no time lag for preparation of documents, etc. Ownership issues. Basically, will you want to own the business yourself, or are you willing to share the business with others? And there are certain business structures which can easily accommodate more than a single owner. There are certain business structures which will only accommodate limited owners. So depending on how many people need to get into the ownership, then based on that you need to decide what kind of structure you require. Okay, at this stage I would like to put in a caution as to whenever you're keeping your and preparing your organization documents, you should definitely take into account individual needs and requirements of separate owners, and hence everybody has their own agendas, etc. So it's important to understand this issue from the beginning to enable you to save on any heartburn at a later stage. Okay, now we come to financing issues. Okay, depending on what is the nature of the business, what is the capital required for that business, what is the complexity of that business, depending on that, you could decide what is the kind of structure as to whether you need higher degree of finance, whether you need lower degree of finance, are you capable of functioning in that business with a limited amount of finance. Depending on that, you should decide on what your structure should be. Okay, costs. Costs are definitely an issue as regards there are certain businesses which have a high level of costs for setup, and there are certain businesses and structures which are easy to set up. So costs is also a factor to be considered. We come to record keeping. As regards records, there are certain structures which require high intensity of record keeping and compliance with various requirements. A sole proprietary concern is definitely very low on record keeping and does not, and as regards companies, etc., there are various additional requirements as regards the ROC, regards annual filing, etc. So these are all things to be considered at the time of setup. Okay, now we come to a very important component, which is basically tax, right? Each of these different structures attract a different level of tax, a different structure for tax, etc. So tax is also an important consideration to be taken into account at the time you start your business and the type of legal venture you're considering. As regards food for thought, decide after due consultation, spend some time today and save any future heartburn. Okay, and thank you guys for taking the time out to listen to me, and I'm open to questions now. Thank you. Hello. Hi, Meenakshi.
Thank you, Mr. Dastoor. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, thank you, Meenakshi. I can hear you now clearly.
I'll now read out all the questions that the attendees have put forward. There is Mr. Shivkumar Kabra. He wants to know, he has a sole proprietary firm, but his firm's name resembles with the already existing entity in the same industry. So what shall he do to get a better perspective in the business? And should he change the name or what? He's a little.
Well, I mean, depending on what is his turnover and what is his risk appetite, I would definitely suggest that he looks at a more structured entity like a company now. I mean, if he's in the business for some time, because once you're a company, you can tweak the name a little and also retain his original name and move forward.
Okay. There is one more question from Nilanchala Chaudhary. She wants to know, can you explain a little more about ROC?
Well, ROC is basically the registrar of companies. It also functions under a new name called the Ministry of Company Affairs now. So now basically there's no ROC, it's technically the MCA, the Ministry of Company Affairs. The Ministry of Company Affairs is the regulator who controls all companies within the country. Each state has a different registrar, and depending on where you want to incorporate your company, you need to approach that registrar within the MCA to register your company. The MCA does the work of a company and you need to file all your documents as regards a company, as regards a private limited or a public limited company with the MCA or the ROC. You need to file an annual return, and it's possible that you would have an ROC hearing at some stage or the other in a company's life. So basically, they are like a super regulator for all companies in India.
Right. Thank you, sir. There is one more question from Divyashish Jindal. He wants to know what is the actual use of NDA in the business, and is it mandatory?
No. NDA means, I assume he's talking about a non-disclosure agreement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So an NDA depends exactly on what are you trying to prevent the other party from disclosing. So if you have an NDA and you are looking for funding, for example, and you are in negotiation with a couple of people to fund your project, it's possible that you may require them to sign a non-disclosure agreement because you're willing to share your business plans, etc. with them, and you don't want them to disclose the same. So an NDA is a way of life now. Any service provider or any person you are in contact with and who you share sensitive information to, which the loss of which would be detrimental to your business, you are within your rights to request him to sign an NDA, and the person at the other end is within his rights to agree to sign it or continue or not. But it's required. It's become a way of life, and I think most people are happy to sign such agreements and move on.
It's more like a precautionary measure than a set rule.
Yeah, it's a precautionary measure. Yeah, at the same time, I must also clarify that an NDA is actually more like it's just there as a warning. It's NDAs in our country are difficult to enforce, and an NDA, unless properly and legally drafted by a proper lawyer, and the issue is large. I mean, you should be willing to technically take the matter to court to enforce an NDA. Otherwise, frankly, for small things, NDAs are technically not worth the effort to the result.
Okay. There is one more question. It's the last question from Anurag Junjunwala. He wants to know, is there a difference between the registration and the tax structure of a physical market and an online,
Sorry, come again, I missed that question.
The difference between the registration...
I didn't miss that.
The difference between the registration and the tax structure of a physical market and an online business.
Yeah, there will be differences between a physical market and an online business because basically the revenue stream is different, the methodology by which the goods are being sold, depending on what you're online. The basic structure is the same, that to do both businesses you need to go through the same kind of legal entity structure as to which legal entity, methodology, and which legal entity you want to choose. But after that there would be differences, because depending on what is the nature of the business, there will be some difference.
There are a couple of more questions that come in, so are you okay to answer them as well?
Hello? Yeah, I have all the time and no issue at all. I'm happy to answer all questions.
Right, sir. There is one party, she wants to know, give me one moment. What are the various legal factors one must keep in mind while registering the company?
Legal factors to keep in mind while registering the company. Now basically what kind of company is it to register, because depending on the nature of the company, then there are different requirements to keep in mind. But basically when you register the company, as long as the key things is to get all the facts in your articles of association and memorandum of association correct at the same, because those are the main things. What are the kind of businesses you want to enter, what is your main business, what is your main object clause, what is your main object clause, what are ancillary businesses you may in the future want to, because changing the main object of a company is difficult, so you should ensure that the main object of the company is in line with what exactly you want to do, and the ancillary objects are all there so that you're covered in case tomorrow you do change and decide to change what is the main object of the business. Also, all the additional clauses which are there in a in the memorandum and articles, you should be 100% clear that this is what your intent is, because once the memorandum and articles is accepted by the registrar of company, change to memorandum and articles is a long drawn out, time consuming and costly affair. Other registrations you need to consider for a company would basically, depending on what the state is, so, and depending on what your business, so you would, depending on your business, have a sales tax registration, a service tax registration, a shops and establishments registration, a profession tax registration, a PF registration, you know. So there are various, all these registrations need to be considered and kept in mind at the time of registering a company. Then if you are registering a company and you have a unique name or you have a unique product, then I suggest that even IP and trademark registration should be considered at this stage.
Mr. Deepak wants to know, sir, what are the specific precautions one can take while shifting the company structure from being a sole proprietor to making it to limited company?
See, a specific, basically, as if you're shifting a business entity from a sole proprietary concern to a company, technically you're not shifting the business. The sole proprietary concern just winds down and then the new company starts business there. So it's just that you don't transfer your debtors, creditors, the books, the stock, anything into the company. You just introduce all of that as new capital or share capital and start in the company. So you don't directly migrate the entity from a sole proprietary concern to a company. As if Mr. Deepak is the sole proprietor of his company, then basically he needs to wind down the assets of the sole proprietary concern, gather whatever cash in hand is, and then migrate that into the company by introducing the same as a share capital or a loan into the company and start the business from the company.
There's one more question.
Yeah.
When the person says she has a handloom industry where it's not formally structured, but it is a handloom industry, and she wants to make it into a not-for-profit organization. So what all regulatory structures?
See, as a not-for-profit organization, you have two options. You can create a Section 25 not-for-profit company, okay, which is like a company for not-for-profit, which can be done and registered with the ROC or the MCA. And on the other hand, you can create a trust or a society, okay, which would then be registered under the Trust Act. Depending on which state you are, you have different Trust Act, but India normally has an Indian Trust Act, and if you are in Bombay, then you have the Bombay Public Trust Act. You can register this as a trust, or you can register this as a society as well, where you have to go to the Registrar of Cooperative Societies. So these are the options open for a not-for-profit.
Right, sir. Okay, the same lady wants to know, will it also impact if she's moving her operations from one state to another?
Yeah, if she's moving her operations from one state to the other, then she should, what does she want to know if she's moving her operations from one state to the other?
Like all the regulatory bodies that she has to intimidate.
Yeah, it will change because depends on state to state. And is she changing the entire operation? I mean, is she going to continue in the old state, or is she going to end that in the old state?
Okay. people, there are three people who are really interested in knowing more about changing format from sole proprietary to the limited company. So they're saying, can you explain it a little more?
See, changing format is when you function as a sole proprietary concern, you don't have any separate entity. Your entity is basically your own bank account. You're working through a sole proprietary concern. Your registration is in your own name, etc. When you move to a private limited company, you need to get two shareholders, or you can get a one company, this one single shareholder company as well. And when that happens, that becomes a entity. In a separate legal entity, you need to then start funding the new separate legal entity. So you have to first register the legal entity. You have to create its memorandum, its articles, etc. Set up the new entity. After that, you can start introducing things into the new company. So you could introduce capital, you could introduce stock, you could introduce some fixed assets, depending on what you want to migrate. Once that happens, then you are free to start the business in the company name. You can also continue the business in the sole proprietary name, shift all of it. All combinations are possible.
Right. Right, sir. There is this person, Vivek Singh. He wants to know, apart from the formal part of it, the legal, the paperwork of it, what are the soft skill that is required during the whole process? Or is it that just paperwork is more than enough?
No, I mean soft skill required. I mean, it's not that your soft skill is that you have to go to a proper consultant who does all this for you, basically, because technically you as a shareholder or as a promoter do not really have to interact with anybody to create the company directly. So technically no soft skills are currently required. What soft skills are required is a mindset, and you should be willing to work with people, etc. So your soft skills in that, going forward, you should be able to adapt to your partner, you should be able to take advice from other people, etc. Because it's a different mindset, moving from a sole proprietary concern where you are the sole owner and the decision maker, to moving to a company where you're responsible, or to a partnership firm.
So there's one question again. When anyone's starting a business, what is that one most important decision or the factor that an entrepreneur should keep in mind while choosing a legal structure?
Okay. No, I think the most important thing any entrepreneur should basically keep in mind is that basically is your what is the idea. The structure should depend technically on what is the product, what is the kind of business you really want to get into. What is the nature of the business? Is it a trading activity? Is it a training activity? Is it a marketing activity? Depending on that, you should and the beauty about all these structures is that you can start the business immediately with a sole proprietary concern, and as the business grows, you can migrate to each subsequent structure. You don't need to consider everything at step one.
Okay. Miss Anu wants to know what is the difference between a corporation and a S corporation company?
No, I'm not sure what this question is from the Indian perspective.
Okay.
As an S corporation.
Right, sir.
Because technically in India we only have private, we have private limited companies, we have companies, and we have these limited liability partnerships. So an S corporation technically doesn't come into play in India.
Okay. Right, sir. Give me one moment, sir. We're done with most of the questions, sir.
Okay.
Um, there's one last question before I wind up. What is the most important aspect of a paperwork that are done for the private limited company? Uh, that is asked by Anuj.
Okay. So most important aspect of any private limited company is basically the creation of your memorandum of association of the company, because that is the basic core document which clearly lays down what are the current proposed activities which the company wishes to do, which clearly gives the raison d'etre of the company. So it says that this company is being incorporated to do the following: X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D. So that, according to me, is the most important thing to be looked at while setting up a company.
We're done with all the questions, sir. Thank you very much for such an interesting session.
Thank you, Meenakshi. Thank you. Thank you guys for listening to me.
Thank you all, our attendees, for participating in this webinar. We're glad that the questions kept coming in, but due to lack of time, we are unable to answer them all. We've answered them, most of the questions, but a couple of them.
But I mean, if there's anybody needs any more clarification, if they could just, if they could just send me an email, I'm happy to reply to that offline as well. No issue.
Great, sir. To all the attendees, please do send your feedbacks and suggestions to us at eclub@nenglobal.org. Also, if you find the sessions interesting, feel free to blog or post about it. The recorded version of the webinar will be available at the YouTube channel by tomorrow.
Okay.
Great, sir. Thank you very much once again, sir.
Thank
Um,
you, Meenakshi. Just send us a link on that YouTube channel. It'll be good to see it later.
Yes, sir. I'll definitely post it forward, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Also join us for the next webinar on how to register a company by Ms. Bharti Jaiprakash on 4th of December at
Excellent.
3 p.m. Thank you
Okay,
once again,
please.
sir.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice
Bye.
evening. Bye, sir.